with the Premier League potentially having to shut down early, here is the best way to sort out the league positions. Let's get into it. What is up, everybody? Jacob Lundstrom here with Amateur Hour Sports, where we give you raw and unfiltered sporting content Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if it is your first time here with me today and you like what you see, make sure you subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more unfiltered content just like this. So if the Premier League would have to shut down early and not be able to come to a full conclusion of the season, it would be a particularly tricky situation with being able to reward teams for how well they played this season and, try not to have any detrimental punishments towards any teams without the ability to resurrect those issues. We've seen in other leagues where they basically just said the season didn't even happen. Like if you go to the Eredivisie, nothing happened. They just nullified the season. None of the positions counted. Ajax weren't rewarded a trophy, no promotions, no relegations, nothing. Just a completely voided season. And I don't necessarily agree with that because teams should be rewarded for how they played in the season. I think that the best way to do it is reward teams as much as you can for their position without having to cause any detrimental issues to any other team. So I don't think there's any detrimental repercussions for any team if you give Liverpool a title. And I fully think that as painful as it is to say, I fully think Liverpool deserved the title this year, and it would be an absolute robbery not to give to them. I think at the very least, you need to give Liverpool the title. I think anybody who says that you can't give Liverpool a title because they didn't actually win it mathematically, I think that's just extremely biased, a complete vendetta against Liverpool. Even though I do have vendetta against Liverpool, you gotta own up to it the way they played this season. You gotta give them the title. They're 25 fucking points clear. It's open shut. They deserve the title and they should be rewarded for their season and how they played. But then the next discussion comes to, well, where do you stop from there? How far do you go? I mean, you got to sort out European positions. Do you just copy and paste from last season into this season? I don't think so, because I think, again, some teams should be rewarded for their position. Like, look at Leicester in the top 4. I think they need to be rewarded for that position. And I don't think it's a detrimental repercussion to bump another team out of the Champions League position if the other team has earned that spot over the course of this season. I think the best way to do it would be to look at the amount of points per games played, because you can't really take what it is right now because teams like Sheffield have not played 29 games, whereas other teams have played those 29 games. So let's assume that Manchester City are going to have their Champions League ban upheld. I think it's going to be at least 1 year. I can see it getting reduced to a year, but it's going to be at least 1 year. So 5th place would likely take that Champions League position. 8th place would now be able to gain a Europa League position based on the way the Cups have gone. So right now, Man United sit in 5th. I think that would be the Champions League spot. Sheffield with a game in hand. If you bump up their average point per game up to 29 games played, they would be just over 44.5 points from their current 43. United would be at 45. So I think that United, even if you rounded up Sheffield to 45 points, the goal difference is in Man United's favor. I'm not even trying to be biased there. I just think that this is the fairest way to do it. It isn't a detrimental repercussion to not allow these other teams with the opportunity to fight for the Champions League or Europa League positions. Obviously, it would be a huge benefit, but at the end of the day, it's not a detrimental thing to not be able to partake in the Champions League. And I assure you, if it was vice versa, I would feel the same way. Sheffield would be in the Champions League spot if they are out in 45 now. United are on 43, but it's the way it is. I swear to you, I'm not trying to be biased there. Man United in 5th place should get that Champions League spot. Then it gets to the Europa League positions. You've got Sheffield who have locked up the 6th spot there. Wolves are going to be in the next position. But then you have Tottenham on 41 points and Arsenal on 40. But Arsenal have a game in hand. So in this scenario, when you give Arsenal that extra game played and you average their points throughout their first 28 games, they do in fact leapfrog Tottenham into that 8th spot. So I think that Arsenal get that Europa League position and Tottenham are bumped into 9th place and do not qualify. And I don't think it's a detrimental thing to Tottenham to not have that spot. Like, it's not like a relegation. You just go at it again next year and you try to qualify. It isn't going to cause too much repercussions. Maybe it's going to eliminate a bit of buying power, but you had so many games and you struggled. It's a bit on you at this point. And again, I don't think that the punishment for not being there is up to the monumental status where you can simply not allow them to not be in the Europa League if that's where they are at the moment. I think either you go with that format where you go points per games played and reward the teams for how they've played, because it would be a bit of a crime not to give Leicester the reward for having such an unbelievable season by their standards. And look, I know they won the league a few years ago, but who would have thought that Brendan Rodgers would have orchestrated this team into the top 4 this year? Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, there's that Leicester fan who called into that British talk show saying they'd leapfrog Man United in the top 4 or the top 6, but who really actually saw that coming? If for some reason you think you absolutely cannot reward these teams for the way they've played this season, you cannot reward Sheffield with that position, then you know what? I guess just leave it the way it was last season. I don't agree with that at all. If you have to, I guess you can do it, but Liverpool still needs to get the title. But I guess you can just leave the top 4 and the Europa League spots the way it was last year. I don't think that really does anything for this season. Doesn't really give you anything for the way you played this season, which I disagree with. Now, the really tricky part is the relegation stuff because, well, this is a scenario where it is detrimental to a team if you relegate them without affording them the opportunity to jump out of the relegation zone. What if you just had a tough part of your schedule and you were going into the easier part of your schedule coming into the next, or if you could have made a push on at the end of the season to stave off relegation, because it is such a close battle. The way it is right now, if you did do that points per game format, it would remain as is. You would have Norwich, Aston Villa, and Bournemouth going down. Now, let's be real here. Let's be completely honest. I am not in any way trying to disrespect Bournemouth, but it's no secret that it would be absolutely detrimental to the existence of that club if they were to get relegated. I don't think they have the financial power and the player power in their current squad to come back up anytime soon. They've spent a lot of their money going into buying players to stay in the Premier League. They haven't done a lot in order to increase their market share or their revenue. Not a lot of stadium renovations. It's been based on trying to stay in the Premier League because they know they're not a financial power. Teams that go down in their scenario, they can spiral out of control very quickly. You saw the way Sunderland did it. You saw the way Huddersfield are doing it. Stoke City, I mean, that one, they looked like they could come back up. They didn't, but they can easily spiral out of control, and I think that this would be a detrimental issue for a team like Bournemouth or any of the other teams to have to play their next season in the championship. So I don't think it would be fair to relegate these teams without having been afforded the opportunity to stay up, because this is a detrimental thing. This can really reshape the trajectory of a team and their future. This could ruin the entire future of the club if they were to get relegated without the chance of even staying up, even though they may have thought that they could have pushed on and staved off relegation. And then the next argument is going to be, well, you got to reward the teams in the championship. You got to reward guys like, Leeds United or West Brom to be able to come up into the Premier League. Well, like I said, you got to reward the teams as much as possible without causing a detrimental repercussion to any other team. So Liverpool winning the league that doesn't do anything to anybody else. That is simply just giving Liverpool a trophy. When it comes to the European positions, sure, it can be a bit of a problem for a team to not have their spot. In the grand scheme, it doesn't do a lot in the negative towards a team who did not get that spot like Tottenham or did not get their Champions League spot. But it's not that big a deal. What is a big deal is relegating teams who may not be able to come back up anytime soon, like Bournemouth, Norwich, and Aston Villa. They've had those problems. They can probably do it, but who knows if it's within the next few years or not. Or who knows, sometimes you go down and you think you come back up, but then it just doesn't happen. Those are detrimental repercussions that unfortunately, it's difficult to reward Leeds and West Brom, who do deserve it, and Leeds, who have been fighting for so long, do deserve to come back up, but I can't see it being fair to tell the other teams in the relegation zone you're going down. I think that's too much of a dogfight to do that, and I think it would be very unfair to those teams. It'd be very hard done by, and it would completely reshake up the future trajectory of those clubs. And again, I don't want to sound biased, just because it's Leeds. As much as I don't want Leeds in the Premier League, I would much rather have Leeds in the Premier League than Liverpool win the title. That's for goddamn sure. But again, for the Liverpool case, the team who deserves it should have been rewarded, and I'm giving them that. But I just don't think it would be fair to relegate the teams to allow Leeds and West Brom and whoever else to come up into the Premier League. But again, it's a very tricky situation. I don't know how the Premier League is going to handle it. I think this is the best way. This is the fairest way. You can't punish teams too severely in this scenario. You have to be able to reward teams, though, for their actions this season without causing problems for other teams. And I think giving Liverpool the Premier League title, your top four, or Man City won't be in the Champions League, so the Champions League positions go to Leicester, Chelsea, and Manchester United. Europa League positions go to Sheffield United, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and Arsenal. And finally, I don't think there should be anything else. I think the rest of it should just be voided. You can still give the Championship League winner trophy. It's just, you don't really get the actual reward that you wanted, unfortunately. But I just can't see a fair way of orchestrating that sort of award. At the end of the day, I really hope as though the Premier League can finish off the season. It's very difficult to get these athletes, who work so hard over the course of a season, to get in shape. And now they have to get thrown back into it. They need a bit of time to get back into match fitness, or else you're going to hear Jurgen Klopp moaning about how his players aren't ready to play every day in every press conference. So you do need to give players a bit of time to get back in shape and game shape. I really want to see the conclusion of the Champions League this season. I hope the Premier League can find a safe way and efficient way to finish off the Premier League season without really causing any damage to the future seasons, whether they change the schedule or if they can shorten the next season in terms of its length. Still play the same amount of games, just in a shorter amount of time. But all in all, I really hope that they can finish off the season. We can see it come to its natural conclusion rather than having to go through these kind of conversations about how they should really finish the season. But that will end it for me. Thank you for listening. Please like the video if you like, and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports if you like the video to stay up to date with more content just like this. As well, hit the bell so that you never miss any episodes. At the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that's okay. See you again next time.